Hey gang, this is Carrie Graham with the Church Lab. We are trying this new series starting today called Burst Your Bubble. And the idea is that even in pre-pandemic times, we have such an easy time staying in our bubble, in our media bubble, and our social circle bubble, and having a very particular perspective. And so much of what the Church Lab does is help people to spiritually and really, in many ways, grow by establishing relationships with people of different perspectives, and in particular, people of different faith perspectives. So now that we're in pandemic times, how much more so are we literally in a bubble, sheltering in place? It is harder than ever before to get out of that bubble and grow and sort of stretch our minds and our hearts in new ways. And yet, I imagine that many of us could be really helped by learning from people with different experiences and perspectives and beliefs. So, this is our guinea pig trial run. We're starting today with this Burst Your Bubble series where we're going to ask people of different perspectives 10 really huge questions that they could spend lots of time answering, but we're going to do it in rapid fire format and see if sharing these with you guys might be of some help, or at least some entertainment. So we'll see how this goes. A worthy experiment, I think. So in any case, I'm very excited that our first guest of honor in this series, in this experiment, if you will, is David Kees. Very, very thrilled that you agreed to do this and try this with me. And we're going to hop right in with the first of the 10 questions, which is introduce yourself.
Happy to. So as you said, my name is David Kees. Everybody calls me Dash. My pronouns are they and them. And I am a full-time software developer for my day job, but I am also an initiate priest in the Firefly House, which is a pan-pagan organization of Wiccans, witches, and other magic workers in the Washington, D.C. area.
Lovely. Like I said, a million questions could come from all of what's going on right now. We're just going to go to number 2. So the second question is, what is a ritual in your worshiping community? So whether that's generally in the pagan community, which we know could mean a lot of things, or very specifically to your experience, what is a ritual in your worshiping community that is really helping you or even challenging you in a good way right now?
So my community is interesting because there is a mix of people who are atheists and some who are theists. And so we will have very different perspectives on what a spiritual practice even is. For me, I'm a polytheist. And so one of the things that's really been giving me the opportunity to sort of pause and slow down is to try to tend some of the shrines that I've set up here in the house. For me, these shrines represent a place that a divine figure can actually come to and be a part of the household in a way that would be special or beyond just like having a piece of art in your home that might depict a divine figure in some capacity. And so taking the time out of my day to tend to these shrines, to keep them clean, light some incense, maybe a candle, that sort of thing, just sort of do the sort of basic maintenance that in the ancient world was sort of the part and parcel of priesthood, has been really important to me in these days, especially because when I'm out of the house for work or other activities, it becomes harder to do those acts.
Yeah, I can see how that would be so meaningful to feel like the home is not, the home is a place to welcome in deity as opposed to I'm stuck here and I can't get to this building where I normally associate, the presence
Right.
of a god or goddess or a deity.
Mm-hmm.
So what is a sacred text that's really speaking to you through this time? And of course, if you're a dialoguer, you'll know that we use sacred text very widely because for some of us, of course, in my tradition, it means the Bible, the Christian, the Protestant Bible. But that can mean a lot of things to different traditions that define sacred text differently. So in your case, Dash, what is a sacred text that's really speaking to you right now?
I actually have two answers, one that's very general and then one that's a little bit more specific. Generally speaking, one of the things I didn't mention in my introduction is that I'm currently at seminary. And at seminary, I took a class on the Psalms. And so the Psalms offer an amazing opportunity to encounter different people praying in different ways for different reasons, whether it's the lament Psalms for times of trouble, whether it's the historical or wisdom Psalms to sort of think about things that have happened and what we can learn from them. And so looking at the Psalter in a new light, even though I don't really practice a Judeo-Christian faith, these are still, useful tools to encounter during these times.
Yeah.
Specific to my own faith context, I've also been thinking a lot about the mythology around the ancient Greek hero and god Asclepius. Asclepius was the son of Apollo and was educated and became very skilled as a doctor. So skilled, in fact, that he was said to be able to either bring people back from the dead or perhaps bring people back like from the brink of death, like just so good at medicine that situations that no one else could heal, this guy would show up and he could pull it off. So there was a sense, though, that he was so good at this medicine, that his skill and his education was so great that he could actually sort of subvert the natural order of processes, that he could find somebody that was that sick and heal them in a way that maybe they weren't supposed to be healed, whatever that means. Mythologically, this made a few fairly powerful figures angry, being Zeus and Hades. And so there's a sense that he was punished unfairly for his skill and his education. Apollo defended him posthumously. He was raised up as a constellation and eventually deified as a god in his own sense. And so there's something about that story in these times that reminds us about the medical professionals of this day and their education and their skill, their ability to do the best they can to try to get out in front of this virus and save everybody they can, and the heroic efforts they go to when even for the people that they aren't able to save, the people who do unfortunately die from this virus, they aren't like our medical professionals are desperately seeking solutions to try to prevent those deaths. And so there is this story that we have from Asclepius in history sort of resonates today in a way that is pretty specific to our own circumstances.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love the connection there. That's so specific to healthcare workers in this mythology. That yeah, what a timely connection indeed. Where are we? We are. See, I'm already. You know me. I'm like, ooh, tell me more. Let's. Number 4. What is part of your faith tradition's history that feels helpful to reflect on or share during this season?
Yeah. We pagans, witches and Wiccans, sort of in specific as well, tend to think of the world and think of our community as being very interconnected. Even the way we practice ritual is usually in circles or small groups, but not really in sort of like the pews and columns with somebody in the front that talks to the people that are seated in the back. And this isn't a value judgment. It's just sort of we do things differently. And so there's a sense of that interconnection, the sense of that we're all in this together, that spiritually we represent in our faith practice, but we also are sort of empirically experiencing it in the world these days. And so that sense of interconnection that we highlight religiously is also now being highlighted in the more secular space, in the epidemiological space. There's also a sense in Wicca and witchcraft that we are powerful beings. People are. Any one of us are powerful beings, and that we have within ourselves the ability to fortify and face our challenges. And we don't always succeed in that. That's, but we have that power within us. We have the capability of looking at a problem and standing up to it and saying that we're going to fight this circumstance. And especially in pagan faiths, somewhat broadly, I think that sense of personal empowerment is a core feature of our practice, as opposed to something that just like you encounter in the modern world in this sort of American individualized way. I do worry sometimes that we're too individualistic, and we find then it's difficult sometimes to work and mesh together. So the idea of the interconnection and this personal power are sort of in tension together, but I think both meaningful.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and you saw me giggling there because, of course, I'm tempted to be like, are you noticing an issue with individualism in fighting a
Yeah.
global public? Oh. No, that really strikes. Even just the image that comes to mind as you talk about this very sort of communal, non-hierarchical way of unifying to
Mm-hmm.
something so strong, something so threatening,
Mm-hmm.
to yeah, that unified standing up against or for something.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, why or why not is your faith tradition important to you these days?
Mm-hmm. I think that it, and again, this isn't meant as a critical statement of other faith communities, but I think I find in Wicca, for myself, a real focus on the here and now, in a way that some other communities might focus on other circumstances of life, than afterlife, or sort of a future life in some capacity. Wicca tends to leave that up sort of to the interpretation of the person who believes, as opposed to trying to codify it into some kind of theological or scriptural reference that you can look at and say, oh, that's what's going to happen. So as a result of that choice in the sort of faith community, what it means is that we are sort of given the opportunity to encounter the world in our own way, and we are sort of told to figure out how to handle the moment that you're in, as opposed to figuring out how the moment we're in somehow leads to some future event, a reward, punishment, etc., whatever, what have you. So that sense of the here and now, if you'll forgive me for the musical reference to Rent, that sense of there being no day but today, that it's sort of an empowering statement that I've been using to say, like, you know what, today was a good day. Tomorrow might not be a good day. Hopefully it will be, but today I've got this, I can control today, and I'm going to make it a good day.
Yeah. Number 1, thank you for the Rent reference. Number 2, that strikes me immediately as a powerful tool in handling uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're all grappling with levels and layers of uncertainty, the likes of which we've never same before. So I immediately sort of felt this, like, oh yeah, confronting the moment for what it is makes sense as being helpful in your tradition. Dash knows that normally in dialogue, I stick to the topic, but not to the question. So the challenge for me is to not be like, let's just keep going. All of these videos would be 5 hours long.
Yes.
So plug I will make while we're getting towards the back end of these questions. The plug I will make is, in the case that this would cause our viewers to have more questions, more curiosities, and more thoughts, which, of course, that's what it does for me. You are welcome anytime to join us for dialogue. Anytime. You can observe if you're feeling uncomfortable. You can jump right on in. If you're interested, you can email me at Carrie@thechurchlab.org, Carrie, like the scary movie, at thechurchlab, as in laboratory.org. Or you can go to our website at thechurchlab.org and just see more about what we're about. That plug is not the reason for this so much as I'm just now thinking, like, oh my gosh, if I was watching this, I would be like, are you kidding? You're going to say that and then not go into more of it? What are you talking about? What are you not talking about? So, okay, so that's my, if you want to do more of this, please let us know. Okay, so Number 6 is maybe the most important question. Which is, what is your favorite meme or GIF or joke so far in the Corona season?
Yeah, there were too many good ones for me to pin myself down to just one. So instead, I'm going to sort of dance around in between the next two questions and say, for humor, I think what's been really useful to me is actually that Trevor Noah is still doing the Daily Show social distancing show, or whatever he's calling it this time. Yeah, and it's just him and his sound engineers and producers adding in some silly noises and graphics. He's in a sweatshirt, just sort of hanging out on a couch, and it's the best thing. Just to know that he and his crew have found a way to continue to do the Daily Show and to be humorous, while also offering us a way to sort of encounter information and news through that lens of humor has been it's been really a lot of fun. I kind of stopped watching the Daily Show as much over the last year or so because it used to be on Hulu and then it left. And so that was then only really available through YouTube. But in these times, I found it again, I think, on YouTube, and been watching it more and more over lunch.
Yeah, me too. I'm like Trevor Noah is like my bedtime story. Like, haha, like coronavirus, global pandemic, but let's laugh about it.
Yeah.
In a comfortable hoodie.
Yeah.
Cool collar, right? His hoodies have, I like the collar. Well, not the collar like I would wear, but like like a sort of raised collar hoodie.
Oh, I'll have to pay attention. I don't think I ever noticed. I'll go and look. Yeah.
I'm like, this looks really comfortable and like still kind of stylish. I don't know. Okay, so does that mean I should skip the next one? The next one was like, what's your sort of favorite be distracted movie podcast?
I've got two there too. So that was humor. This is non-humor. Podcast wise, I recently bumped into the Spooked podcast. Spooked like spooky, SPOOKED, and it is all ghost stories or spooky stories that have been either submitted by viewers or listeners to the podcast, or things that the host finds online or what have you, and just sort of told in that great sort of like ghost story way. So that's been a lot of fun to sort of have little like 20-minute, half an hour episodes of this show, sometimes with 2 or 3 little ghost stories to listen to. I'm a huge horror buff, so this is right up my alley, and having these bite-sized chunks is a lot of fun too. And then just for escapism, I've really been enjoying The Dragon Prince on Netflix. It's this great little anime that has some real moral lessons. It has a main character who's deaf, so there's American Sign Language on screen in an animated flick that nominally is set up for children. So like there's a couple of really interesting moments of accessibility within the show, and it's just great. It's a hugely wonderful, enjoyable little TV show.
Yeah, I have not checked it out. I will take a look. That's cool. It's really cool. Okay, so now number 8, going back to something a little bit more serious. What is the hardest thing, even just today? I feel like it changes day to day for a lot of us, right? What's the hardest thing right now for you about COVID?
Today specifically, my roof started to leak, but that's a very specific, very specific problem that actually has nothing to do with necessarily coronavirus. But yeah, so up in my attic, there's now a big like Tupperware container just catching water. But you know, we'll figure that part out. In a more general sense, life goes on, right? Even the weird moments of life. In a more general sense, my partner Megan is still going to work. She's an emergency veterinarian, and so the clinics are still open so that people who have a pet emergency can take their pet to a doctor. But that means she's encountering the public. She's in a space with a bunch of other people. Luckily, they're all medical professionals, so they already have masks and gloves and things on hand for the work that they're doing, and so they can sort of just they hopefully were able to adapt fairly smoothly to some of the protective measures that keep everybody safe.
Yeah.
But that still puts Megan and I probably at a slightly above average chance of encountering this virus while we were all sheltering in place. And of course, I worry in a more general way, more wide way, as we begin to reach the end of our endurance with respect to staying at home, and people are starting to get a little rambunctious about going outside. I do worry that we're setting ourselves up for some hard truths in the next couple of weeks that I'm not sure we're as prepared for as we think we are. But I'm trying to remain as optimistic as possible while also sort of preparing myself that this is not over. We're just sort of seeing where we're at in this moment, but there's still a long road to walk in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And a huge shout out to Megan and the wonderful work that she does. I adore Megan, as you know. Talent to share that with the world. There was one other thing that you said. Oh, just there's coming weeks. It'll be,
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. How this goes. And are there silver linings in terms of, something? This is the next question, right? Like, I don't know if the best way to phrase it is what is the best thing, right? The best inadvertent effect. But I think not everybody is privileged enough to be able to express this, but there are those of us who are encountering some unexpected silver linings. And I'm curious if you have encountered those.
Yeah, I think for me, I am very much a homebody. I'm very happy staying at home. I worked from home full time for like 7 years, and then actually only recently went back to an office job. So for me, staying at home is very comfortable. I don't actually think I've gotten into a car in probably close to a month. Like I walk my dog and that's pretty much it. Part of that's because, as I said, Megan's already out of the house. So if somebody's going to do grocery shopping or things like that, we've sort of said, why don't you handle it while you're already out, rather than like also putting me out in the world, sort of a thing. I say that like she didn't handle grocery shopping before because I don't like to leave the house, but that's beside the point. She's laughing at me now. So I think the silver lining I have in all of that is because so many other people are also sheltering in place and staying at home. The pressure to then leave and go do something is so reduced that it actually has surprisingly felt sort of like a weight off my shoulders, because we get around to like a Friday night when under other circumstances friends might be saying, oh, it'll be fine, just come out and hang with us, and I'm like, but I'm tired and I've worked all week and I get up every day at 5 a.m. to handle some pets and things like that. And so like by the time Friday night rolls around, I'm really much more interested in going to bed than I am in going out. And that pressure, that feeling that I'm missing out or that I should really go hang with my friends is just right now kind of gone. And that's actually opened up a little bit, I think, of emotional bandwidth to try to do some online events, to try and focus a little bit more with some group projects that have come up for school and work in ways that might have been harder to accomplish because everybody's schedules might have been much more busy, whereas in these times it's actually a lot easier to get together with 4 people in different time zones. There's not as many things that are drawing us in different places. And so in the same way that I would enjoy seeing people in real life, for lack of a better way of putting it, in the flesh, face to face, I'm finding that there is a real sort of balance to the ability to get together online and the freedom to feel like I'm not missing out or disappointing people when I say, you know what, I'm really just going to go to bed. I'm sorry.
Right. It's sort of like we were already overdoing it before.
Yeah.
It sucks to kind of think that what you would let go of is like IRL connections to your friends.
Yeah.
Now we're all sacrificing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I just realized the entire thing I've been using a branded mug. I hope that's okay. This is the school I go to. I just took a sip. I'm like, oh, this was unintentional but subtle, and now I'm just going to make it overt.
I think it's okay. I don't think sponsors are going to mind.
Good. I'll flip it around the other way now.
Exactly. So the last question is, what's one or maybe even a few things that you're doing right now to take good care of yourself.
Yeah. So I think, unfortunately, I'm not actually the best at taking care of myself under normal times. I don't.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, because I don't really exercise as much at all as I should. I don't eat well, et cetera, et cetera. So I had to think. I was like, what could I say that was actually positive here? I'm really doing my best to try to take a lot of time for fun reading, like just reading fiction. That was something that I try to do a lot anyway while I'm in school and working, just because it's an opportunity to escape and to kind of relax. And I'm trying to let go of any guilt I might feel for doing that maybe a little bit more and sort of balancing everything in different ways than I might have if the time wasn't also somewhat heavy. So that just any way to sort of give myself the opportunity to just take an hour. And on the one hand too, like to spending that hour reading a book to just relax a little bit. If I was going to fail a class because I spent 1 hour reading my novel, I was not doing well in that class already. Like the novel wasn't the problem. Luckily that hasn't happened, but like there's a sense there where you're like, there's a sense, especially I think in America, that you just got to go and keep working, just get it all done. And it's like, no, taking an hour for yourself is just not really going to alter the outcome, hopefully. Um, as I said before, just sort of that renewed focus on trying to maintain or enhance a little bit of my own spiritual practice with respect to shrine tending. I actually am, I used to pray the hours at morning, noon, night, and then bedtime. And I've been debating picking that up again as well. But also then sort of balancing that against reading, because I've also enjoyed getting up in the morning, doing a little bit of homework and like reading a novel and just sort of relaxing and not feeling as if I have this extra duty or requirement or responsibility. So sometimes you're still sort of playing around with even what you're doing for self-care, I suppose. And to some extent too, I did this even before we hit these times of coronavirus, but I just decided to not take any classes this summer. Since I started school in fall of 2018, I took classes every single quarter from that point until now. And this was even before, like I said, before the virus kicked in. I just sort of said, you know what, I need a break. I'm just not going to do any classes this summer. And so I'm reaching sort of the light at the end of the tunnel phase for this quarter of school, and looking forward to June, July, and August, where I won't have to feel like I've got to be reading this or that. And instead, I'll probably continue to read books and things that will spark the theological creative mind, but I'll pick the ones that I want to read as opposed to having them assigned. And luckily most of the assignments are good. I've been very pleased with what I've been asked to read, but there is something special about being able to say, this is something that I want to encounter and internalize for myself. And I'm kind of looking forward to being able to do that for a couple of months over the summer before getting back into the swing of classes in the fall.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I think those are great examples. And even that experimentation with self-care, even those of us who already had very established kind of self-care tools and routines, none of us have been through a pandemic before. Like, we're all on a learning curve, all figuring out the stuff that worked before. Some of it doesn't work now. The stuff that we wouldn't think worked maybe does help now. So I think you're right on with the sort of like playing with the things that we go, oh, I think this actually helps me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do it in the morning. Yeah. Well, that is our 10 questions. Now, I will say, is there anything else? Is there anything we didn't get to? Something you want to make sure to share before we conclude today?
I don't think so. I thought, just as we were talking, I think or you had sent me the questions in advance, so I sort of organized everything in the way that I wanted to get them out, and I think we've done that, so I think we're good.
Yeah, well, and well articulated, I should say, very well articulated. So I want to thank you big time. Oh, this is what it was before.
Oh.
I forgot to mention, and maybe you did mention this in the intro, but I don't think we established where we are. So Dash is in Virginia.
Right.
And I am in Austin, Texas. And so I think as you were talking about endurance, that's what it was I meant to say before. When you're talking about endurance in terms of people maybe not saying in so much, what that's going to look like in coming weeks, it occurred to me, even our geographies are affecting, the rules, the wisdom.
Yep.
rules, the governmental rules related to going out or staying in, but also the wisdom of doing so depending on where our valleys and peaks of the virus lie.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Right. Well, I am so grateful to you for trying this with me.
No problem.
It's been really fun to hear your responses, and will be really fun to share and how people engage this. And again, if anybody is watching and isn't already involved in the Church Lab, please feel free to check us out at thechurchlab.org, or shoot me an email, Carrie, like the scary movie, at thechurchlab.org. We have dialogues every 2 weeks, and you can see all of our events coming up on our website. And that's a wonderful place for us to take these kinds of questions and sort of dig deeper with folks of all kinds of different perspectives and traditions. So thank you very much. Thanks to Dash. Thanks to whoever happens to be watching this. Hi, Mom. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Have a good one, Dad.